So what I want to do now is I want this to more or less look the same, but currently this is all using divs, which divs are fine to use. I use them all the time, but it's using just divs with IDs and classes, right? It would be better because the divs don't inherently have a semantic meaning. They just mean division, right? Just mean a grouping. It would be better if instead we use the HTML5 so that they do mean something. So when I say header, that means, the head, and when I say footer, it means the foot, and when we say sections, it means sections. So much like when we did inline CSS and we turned it into internal CSS, and then we did internal and we converted it to external CSS, it's kind of what we're going to do here. We're going to basically convert our divs to proper semantic HTML5 tags, okay? So more or less, I want it to look pretty similar. There'll be slight differences. Some things are going to shift a little bit, but it should look mostly the same as what we have here. So all we're going to do is go through. It's going to also be a bit more work because it's going to be a little bit confusing, and we're actually going to have to also change our CSS because our CSS is targeting those divs with the IDs and classes. Now I'm going to have to change them so they're targeting those tags instead. Okay, so that being said, let's go in here and we're going to try to make this whole thing work here. Okay, so first things first, what I want to do is I just want to get rid of this top section because the top section incorporates both what I would call the header, right, which is this subsection, this part right here, as well as the meat and bones, of our articles here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on top section so I can see where the bottom tag is. It's right here. Okay, so see how it highlights it? I'm going to get rid of that first, and I'm going to leave the space there so it's a little bit easier to work with. And then I'm going to get rid of this one. Boom. Okay, so now those are gone. Now, we'll come back to that afterwards. Okay, so now I have this subsection, and this section, if you look, this is the section that has the name of the heading, has the nav bar, and it has an image and a caption, okay? So this actually should just be div subsection. That doesn't really say anything anyway. This should instead be our header, right? Because the header contains all those elements. So I'm going to go inside this div, and I'm going to change it to header. Boom. And then we're going to go to this one, and I'm going to call this one header. Okay. And just to make things a little bit easier, I'm going to hit enter so there's a little bit of a gap there. Makes it a little bit easier. I'm also going to shift tab. I'm going to hit shift and tab so that it's one tab over from that. So it's a little bit cleaner. Okay, good. So this will be our header. Great. Now we have this div nav bar, right? This isn't correct either, right? So this should actually just be a nav. So I'm actually just make things easier. I'm going to take this part and just go nav, and then I'll take this part and just type in nav. And now I have my opening and closing of my nav, and then those elements are inside of it. Great. That looks pretty awesome. Okay, next I have this image, and in the image I have the href here and this, right? So these are basically both part of like the caption, right? These have association with this image. So this should all be inside of a figure. So I'm going to, underneath nav, we're going to type in figure, boom, 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 and it'll give me the closing one. So I'm just going to, before the horizontal rule, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to take this middle mouse button, click and drag it there. Okay, so we got figure, and then I have this content in, and just to show that it's nested, I'm going to grab all of it and just tab that in. So now you see we have figure, I have an image here, which is great, and then after that, we have a break, and then, oops, cancel. We have a break, and then we have the caption, we'll call it. So instead of that, instead of this break, I'm just going to use fig caption. So I'm going to type in fig caption, and then I need the closing of that as well. So underneath this, we're going to go ahead and close that fig caption. And so this whole thing's the figure, which contains the image, and then inside of it's the fig caption. And just to show that this is nested inside of that, I'm just going to tab that in. So you can tell that these two things are the caption to this image, okay? So now we've got basically the header part pretty good, okay? And then underneath that, I just have the horizontal rule because it's not really associated with that. Great. Okay. Now, underneath the header is the main section, right? Before the bottom section is these things right here are the main section. So I'm going to go ahead and make a main section. So like this, we're going to type in, main, boom, and it's going to give me that. I'm just going to select that, hit Control X or Command X if you're on a PC. And then after the bottom of this one, I'll hit Control V or Command V. Okay, so this is our main section. Okay, so now inside of our main section, we can have, instead of calling them subsection, there's actually a main thing that we can have called a section. Okay, so I would say each one of these are actually like an article. Because think about it, I like to look at it like it's a newspaper, right? So when you have a newspaper, you'll have your many pages, right? You'll have the front page, and then you have a sports section and a comic section. And I don't know what the other sections are. There's only two I read. So you have those two sections, and then inside of those, you have articles. So I'm looking at each one of these as articles, but I'm looking at this whole big thing as one section, okay? Because I'm going to have these go all the way across. You'll see eventually. So we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to call this section, like so. Grab the one there, Control X or Command X, and then Control V or Command V. Make sure this is tabbed in so you can tell that it's inside of that. I'm going to grab all of these, and I'm going to tab those in because they're all going to go inside of the section. And instead of subsection, these each are an article. So basically, I'm just going to replace all these divs with article instead. Okay, article, and article, oops, and then these all need to be article as well, article. So just make sure you do the closing ones as well, otherwise it'll be all locked down. Article, okay. And the way that the idea here is that I only have like just this one section, but the idea is that if you had multiple sections, I would like have this section, and then I'd have another section, right, with more articles. So like all these articles kind of fit together into whatever this section is, and then all of these articles fit together with what's in this section, if that makes sense. I'm going to remove that section just because I don't want to add extra work. So we'll call that good. So now we have our sections, we have our articles, and that's the main area, right? That's the meat of our content, although it's actually pretty sparse. It's actually sparser than everything else. So now let's do our footer section. So instead of bottom section, this should be called footer, right? So I'm going to click on this. Okay, so that's where the foot, I'm just going to go ahead and do the bottom first because it's easier to tell where to do it up here. And then I'm going to change this one to also footer. Good. Okay, so this will be our footer. And then what we're going to do is just do what we did before. So this will just be a section. So I'm going to go ahead and we will do section. Okay, badoink. And I'm just going to Control X to cut that. And then we will put it here, Control V or Command V, and this needs to be tabbed in. Boom. All of this needs to get tabbed in so you can tell that it goes inside of this section. All right, and now each one of these are kind of an article within it, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm picturing the image being one article, even though there's not really anything in it. It's just a picture, but we're just gonna, there's no text associated with it, so we're just gonna go ahead and do that. Call it article. Okay, and then let's get enter, and then I'm just gonna grab this and shove it in there. Ugh. I love that little pop-up thing. I gotta turn that off. Okay, so inside this article is just one picture. Okay, then we're gonna do another article. Okay, and I'll hit enter, and then inside of that is gonna be my, because I got both this ordered list and the list of likes, right? So that's one piece. So we're going to put that inside of that article. And then this needs to be tabbed in. Okay, so inside of this article is that the title of this thing and then the content inside, right? So, and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to go right down the line. Article, enter, and then I'm going to grab these to here, and I'm going to control, we'll just drag it up. Boom. And once again, these did not tab. So tab that in. And then one last article. Article. Boom. Enter. And I'm just going to grab the this stuff here and drag it into there. And that one got super tabbed. Like that. And then this did not get tabbed. Tab. Okay. And now we have them all organized in a much more logical manner. Now, when you go and you preview this, Control R, it's going to be all messed up. Because all of our CSS, I mean, some of it is looking at specific, like, element, like P class and, you know, But a lot of it is looking for those IDs and classes. So this is going to be all no bueno. So what we got to do is basically go through and fix our CSS. So I'm just going to scroll up to the top. So body can remain the same. Top section, right? We're now going to make this the, not footer, header, right? So I'll go like that. I'll save it. And then what you're going to see is when we go here and Control R, now that's got a lot of that formatting, okay? That looks pretty okay. I noticed that it's not centered. I think I forgot to switch that one over. So we're going to go ahead and do, stop it. There we go. Text align, and we're just going to do center. Because I think I still had that as CSS inside of the thing, which I think I just forgot to do it. Okay, so now it's centered. The nav bar could look a little better. But, okay, so that's going to be header. Bottom section, that one's going to be footer. So I'm just going to take out bottom section and type in footer. So now that's going to select that. All right. And again, we go here, Control R. You can see now it looks pretty similar to what we had before. Okay. The strike through. So all of these are specifically grabbing some like specific elements. Those can all stay. That's not a big deal. But now you're going to see we had this as top section. So I could do this a little bit differently than the way I had it before. What I could do is, where am I? Losing it. Okay. So right now I was selecting this by doing the section. But what I could do now is actually use my figure or whatever instead. So what we could do is, or actually we'll just use what we have. So we'll just do header image, right? So header and then image, and then bottom section we'll just do footer and image. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that and make sure that we're good here. Control R, and now the image is scaled and that one's fine. Okay, great. All right. So so header image, footer image. Okay. Now these are fine, but you're going to see the nav bar is not going to work. So I have to change these. Instead of nav bar, it's just going to be nav, right? Because we don't use that ID anymore. We're going to do nav for all of these. Okay, and then we'll save that. Again, go back here, Control R, and now that looks correct. Okay, looking good. What else do we need? All right, so now I think that might be it for converting it over. Is that all of our nav bar? Yeah. Okay, so if we were to look at our page, I think it's slightly different, but it's mostly similar to what we had before. You'll remember this white actually went all the way down into this section. Now it only goes to the top section. But I'm okay with that because we're gonna do something a little bit differently with this, and that'll be the last thing that we like physically do together. Okay, so now it's semantic and it's more correct.